right here, and of course Gabe Brown from North Dakota. So I'm going to hand this off to Dave, and I would appreciate if you guys would use this only because I had to go through hell and high water to get them ordered and get them here. So for nothing else, please. Okay.
Comfort it.
You just push on the trigger. You can do that, or a lot of that.
Anybody have trouble hearing me?
Not me.
Use the microphone.
Yes.
Always one in the crowd.
All right. How about that? Oh, yeah. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for making it out. We got an embarrassment of riches in terms of soil expertise and hands in the soil expertise from farmers using cover crops here today. My job as friendly moderator is basically to say hello, thank you, a little bit of housekeeping, and then turn you over to their knowledgeable hands so we can hear from them while we're here on the island. But I do want to say thank you and do a little bit of that housekeeping. So the cover crop that's planted behind us, a lot of good hard work by Christian, the farm manager here at Kahumana, and his crew to get it up. We're going to have Jamie tell us about it. She's the one that designed the planting, and she'll talk to you about that in just a minute and tell you about the different species that are there. Man, it's pretty gorgeous, huh? And just wanted to say we're supported by a grant from Western SARE and also some funding from the Hawaii State Department of Health Clean Waters branch, and we appreciate their support and making this cover crop happen and allowing us to be here to organize the event for you guys. So thanks for that. What we're going to do, after Jamie says a few words about the crop, we're going to turn things over and listen to Gabe for about 10 minutes. And then, especially as I see more numbers here, I want to we're going to split into groups so that you guys can rotate through and spend about 5 or 10 minutes doing Q&A with each of these experts. And in a small group setting, I think we're all going to get a lot more out of it that way. And you can still use the bullhorn in the small groups. I know Vincent was concerned about that, but we can have them even if the groups of 5 or 10. We can use the bullhorn if that's necessary. In terms of 1 or 2 more things, I do have a sign-in sheet, which just while we're talking, I'm going to pass around, and I'd appreciate it if everybody would just write their name down. If you'd like to be on the Wahoo RC&D mailing list, write down your real email. If you don't want to be on it, write down fake email. And at the end, we also, in the folders that the first lucky 30 participants got, you have some quick flyers about Oahu RC&D projects and programs, one of which will actually help you with the cost share program to get started cover cropping. If you're in this watershed we are standing in right now, or if you're in Waiahole or Ka'alaya watersheds on the far side of the island. So talk to us later about those if that applies to you. Jamie, would you like to get up here and say a few words about the cover crop planting we're standing in front of?
Yeah, sure.
No, yes you are.
Oh, we can't even hear you from here. Okay.
Can't hear you. It turns out Pyle is sponsoring the farm union. We didn't know that.
We have to use these. Okay, so I designed this cover crop mix basically just based upon, oh my goodness, based upon trial and error. Sorry if I'm shouting at you guys.
No.
But yeah, I've been working with cover crops out at Hark for about 8 years or so, and mostly we were just working with sun hemp to start. We started using other species as time went on, got into species mixes about 2014 I'd say, and it's been a lot of trial and error, mostly error, just kind of mixing different things together and seeing how they go. So at this point I'm doing research on basically ratios of seed in the mix and types of covers to mix together, trying to kind of get an ideal blend. We also have a trial in right now where we've got 12 plots, and we're basically looking at the chemical, the physical, and the biological changes in the soil. So we collected a bunch of baseline data on our soils, which have been just traditionally, tilled like crazy. And now we're doing no-till cover crop, and in each of those plots we've got different species mixes. So we kind of want to see, does any species mix have a more beneficial impact on our soil than another, or does it even matter, or is it just good that we're covering it in general? So so anyway, what we have here, we should be standing over there, but basically there's a couple of small plots on this side where we have the single species plantings and just really small plantings, and then there's like about a 10-foot wide row of sun hemp right here. That we were going to roller crimp with our no-till equipment, but unfortunately technical issues, so I'm just going to show it to you instead in the back of my truck. And then the mixed species cover crop planting here is a mix of 5 different species that we've just had a lot of luck with on our farm over in Kunia, and this climate is not dramatically different from where we're at. It's also pretty dry where I'm at. So yeah, they do pretty well in the summertime, so I just made that blend for Christian to test out and see how he likes it. And one of the things I hope you guys will do if you get some time, maybe not during the discussion, but afterwards, walk into this field and walk through the single species and just look at the difference. It's like very night and day. It's gorgeous in there. So, okay, that's it. Okay.
So what's thrown in there?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorghum Sudan, sun hemp, oats, buckwheat, and lab lab.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorghum Sudan.
The sorghum Sudan's a hybrid, sterile, so if it seeds, it doesn't.
So there's a total of 5 or 6?
5?
I thought it was 6.
There are 6.
Sorry,
Yeah.
6.
Radish?
Oh gosh, I forgot radish. Yeah, tillage radish. That's a newer one. Yeah, we've been working with. Yeah.
Looks like daikon right there.
It's not daikon. It's the tillage radish that's sold by Colau Seed. If you guys know Susan over on the windward side, it's the variety that she sells. So.
Jen, how much rain have you had here lately? I mean, all the kiavis are green, the ground is damp.
They've had rain.
idea.
They've had rain.
Well, I know they've had
A
rain,
good
but how
dump-
much?
A good dump, a couple inches in the past week, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're all on different parts of this island. Christian's the guy on site here, and he's back making sure everybody has a good time at the farm fair. So
Roger
excuse
that.
us for not having the exact site
What
answers
was
for
here
you.
before and when was it planted?
So this was planted.
About 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, this area had been fallowed for quite some time, and was ripped and then tilled several times before planting by Christian and his crew.
and it basically just looked like what you see around you, like mostly chaotic.
Is it irrigated at all?
Yes, it is irrigated. They've
see
got
this?
sprinkler irrigators. There's different types of irrigation you can do, and if you want, I'm going to be talking about equipment specifically, so if you have questions about irrigation, that's probably the appropriate place, and I'll just talk about what we do. I could show you what they did.
Can everybody hear her in the back?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll show you guys the irrigation stuff. Oh, you want to know the species? Yeah. It's sorghum Sudan, sun hemp, oats, lab lab, radish, buckwheat.
Is the lab sterile?
The lab lab, no, it's not. You take it down before it seeds, though. This is right about termination time. 6 weeks is about right. It's depending on the cover crop you're using, and we can talk more about that too.
You know, it's very impressive that everybody's here. That at the end of the last workshop, this is just as populated as Peter's. So I'm really happy to know that the 2 top workshops that we had planned are being so populated and people are so interested. So very cool.
I have one question, fast. So the no-till won't be demo today?
No, but I'll talk to you about it.
Okay. Is it because it can't come out of the truck?
Yeah,
Is there enough people to lift it?
Oh, yeah. Well, also, we're missing a pin for the PCS. I can't have it hanging off the
Yeah,
PTO.
yeah.
I know, I really wanted to do this last minute. It didn't work out. But
Here to help us make
Need
it
a
work.
horse.
Peter knows how to make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, I will say a couple of more words about the layout of the planting, just for our 4 soil experts who are going to be breaking people off. Along this side of the planting, we have single species blocks. Of the lab, followed by black oats, followed by tillage radish, followed by buckwheat. Okay, and then right behind me is a 10-foot strip of sun hemp, pure sun hemp monoculture. Okay, we had this set up for a roller crimper demo, which unfortunately hit a couple equipment snags, but you guys can see that. And then everything else to this side is those 5 species, along with the sorghum Sudan grass in a blend. All right.
I had wanted to have a backhoe trench that we could walk in and see the root structure down the side of, but
Just give him a shovel, somebody.
They weren't able to get that done, and so this is what we're doing instead.
Good idea.
All right, so we'll turn it over to Gabe. Gabe, we've got about 10 minutes, and then we'll split it out into the groups with the four people.
Okay, thank you. See, I am using this.
Thanks, Gabe.
Okay. So, the first thing that one needs to ask himself when planting a cover crop is, what's my resource concern, right? What was Christian trying to do here? Now, obviously, this is new land that he's taken over. Chances are it's been tilled and abused a bit. Okay, so what do we want to do?
Stop the weeds from growing.
Stop the weeds from growing is one.
Add nitrogen.
I did.
Your biocarbons.
Increase biocarbons.
Stop it from eroding.
Add nitrogen.
Stop it from eroding. Add nitrogen.
Soil
But I have
diversity.
yet to hear the most important one.
Microbes, soil diversity.
Biology.
Yeah, okay.
You cannot grow soil without biology. It's all about biology. So, what species do we need, or combination thereof, to increase soil biology? How are you going to form soil aggregates?
Worms?
Diversity, and that's exactly right, and biology. Now I know I've been here several days and I've heard a lot of talk about sun hemp. Sun hemp alone is not going to increase biology. The other thing about, I just want to say it as I'm thinking about it, about monoculture legumes, you will decrease infiltration with monoculture legumes. You're going to decrease, what did Bob talk about? For those of you who were in Bob's workshop yesterday, his session, he talked about what? Soil aggregates and pore spaces. The only way you're going to make soil aggregates is with mycorrhizal fungi and biology. Soil aggregates will increase pore spaces. To do that, you really need the fibrous root systems. And if you look here, your grass plants, such as sorghum Sudan, you see what's clinging to these roots? That's the formation of new soil aggregates. A soil aggregate will only last approximately 4 weeks, and then it's going to be broken down. So the only way you're going to build new ones is if you have biology and mycorrhizal fungi. You need diversity in order to do that. You're not going to get it with single species. Yes, sun hemp does serve a real purpose for nitrogen fixation, and it does a pretty good job of weed control. But realize, over long term, it's not going to be the total answer. So we put these in combinations in order to take advantage of the synergies of each plant. Because the legumes, sun hemp and lab, are going to fix nitrogen through mycorrhizal fungi. The grass plants, sorghum Sudan and oats, are going to use some of that end. Of course, the legumes will use some, but these will use some also and increase their growth. Now, I just got here, but if I walked in here, I could do a quick biomass estimate of each of these, and I'll guarantee you the diverse polyculture will be considerably more biomass. What does that do for us? Biomass area.
More exudates.
Increases it.
You're going to increase what? Two things.
Water storage?
Photosynthetic rate
Right.
and photosynthetic capacity.
And biomass.
And what that is, photosynthetic rate, photosynthetic capacity, it's the ability, the total amount of sunlight that will be collected in a particular field, and then the amount that can be converted into biomass. You're exactly right. So that's going to dictate how much carbon then. We take CO2 out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis, pumped through root exudates to feed biology. And that's what it's about in simplistic terms.
Right.
And if you want to learn a lot more about it, ask Bob, because he can explain it. But that's what we're really trying to do, is how do we capture what's free, more or less.
Right.
True, we have to grow something, but we're not buying these inputs. We're using, and if you were at Peter's demonstration, what's the V trellis do? And I'm just fascinated by it because it makes perfect sense.
Increases photosynthesis.
It increases the amount of sunlight that can be captured by that plant. Thus you're going to get more fruit. I mean, it just makes simple sense. And that's what we're trying to do here. So we need to take that in mind. Now, I mentioned it yesterday in my presentation, but if you study the ecological papers, there's a real advantage to having like 7 species versus 1 or 2 or 3. And so, there's no magic number, and at certain times of the year, and depending on your resource concern, you may not get to 7. But I'm just saying that there's benefits. One of the things is, like, where I'm at in North Dakota, we see wild fluctuations in moisture, temperature. Some summers are hot and dry, some are cloudy. If you have diverse polyculture mixes, that builds resilience. Because some years one species may dominate, other years another one will. If you have more than one species in there, it gives you that resilience. So I encourage you to take advantage of things like that. Like I said yesterday, I cannot tell you which species is going to work on your operation. Neither can NRCS, neither can Jamie, anyone. We can give you our best estimate and show you what's working in the area, but it's going to be up to everyone to try a little bit of their own. So don't be afraid to try things, because every soil's a little different, every climate's just a little bit different. So be willing to do that, But there's one thing I'm 100% confident of. I can get cover crops to work on these islands, no problem. No problem at all. Which ones is going to take some learning to do. But what you're really trying to do is improve your soil structure, aggregation, nutrient cycling, infiltration. In time then, you'll hold the amount of moisture that you're able to hold in your soils to be used by that plant when it's needed. And that's what we want to do, is increase soil structure. Now, I realize that many of the producers here are organic producers. I realize you're going to do some tillage. I understand that. Just minimize the tillage passes, because every time you do that, you're going to destroy mycorrhizal fungi, you're destroying the home for biology, and you have to almost start over. In my environment, I will tell you, one tillage pass, it takes me 20 years to rectify that situation.
Oh my goodness.
Now, because you can grow things for much longer than I can, you're going to be able to rectify that, But I encourage you, I was really encouraged that Jamie has access to a crop roller. That's the exact way to terminate these, because you're going to have to use something like that, and you're going to have species that are at the proper growth stage where rolling will terminate, without a herbicide. Normally, that's just past flowering. Normally. Wouldn't you say, Bob, for the environment? Yep.
Typically, like the sun hemp, it'll start to get woody after its flowering stage.
Yep.
But oftentimes, I'll take sun hemp, I'll let it go completely to brown, completely lignified, then just easily push it over.
Yep.
Now I've got lignified tissue. I'm looking for lignified tissue because this green stuff, once you put it in the ground or lay it on the surface, 60% of the carbon is going right out at the top. I want lignin for fungi because they develop humus.
That's exactly right. One other important thing I got to mention is, often we think of organic matter as being the biomass that we roll down. 2/3 of your organic matter increase is going to come from roots. Roots will put way more organic matter into the soil than will above ground biomass. As is above, so is below. So what you're seeing above ground, there's more than that below ground. So you need to be thinking of that. The other benefit, if you have livestock, we can double and triple root biomass by grazing a living cover crop and having those roots. They will proliferate. I'm familiar with the study on sorghum Sudan grass. If we graze sorghum Sudan during the growing season, we will triple root biomass, thus accelerating organic matter increase. And if we accelerate root development, we're going to have more soil aggregates, more pore spaces, more room for the roots, more room for the oxygen that Bob talked about, biology, etc., etc. It's a win-win-win situation.
Gabe, do you put a rotation in animals when you do it?
Do I rotate the animals? Absolutely. We're moving our livestock daily.
But I mean, you're using different animals. You're using
different species of animals if they're available to you. And we do that. We use beef, sheep, and our chickens primarily. I don't like to put hogs so much on our cropland because we're no-tillers. I mean, you got to be moving them daily. Otherwise, they're going to do too much tillage for my liking. But there is a place for them, yes.
So we had completely grassland, and we tilled up the first time to add minerals and amendments, and we planted our cover crop. Would you recommend us tilling in the cover crop, or would you recommend us just slash and drop and do that before our trees?
The question, he had perennial pasture land, grazing land, and then they tilled it up to add some amendments. And I would have liked to have seen which amendments you had to add.
Dolomite, Epsom salts. We did a lot of rock dust. So just
and I would say, depending on what was there, I'd question whether they were really needed or not. Realize that most soil tests, and I'm not doubting what you're saying, but just realize this: most soil tests out there don't tell you a darn thing, because all they're telling you is the amount of organic fraction that's in the soil that day. They don't explain how much biology is in there, and how much biology is going to determine how much of that organic fraction is going to be converted to inorganic.
Good point.
So 99% of the soil tests are done are wasted time and paper. Plain and simple, in my opinion. Bob may disagree, but I know I'm right. But I'm kidding.
That leaves a lot.
Yeah. So the question then was, should he till in the cover crop or roll it down? If you have, you're going to have bare soil if you till it. And bare soil is evaporation, no home for biology. I would take rolling over tilling in almost all situations. Not all, right? But most.
I mean, I think that we start tilling down legumes. A lot of us have in our heads for years, for 20 years. I did green manures. Green manures, right? We grow up a legume, hit it at succulents, 4 inches in the ground. You can do that for 30 years straight and measure your SOM level every year, and you're going to find it goes up a little bit and back down, up a little bit and back down. It's like roughly eating lettuce all day. I love lettuce. I love salad. But if you're going to eat it all day.
Here. Yeah, you might as well talk. Actually, that's a good question.
I want to hop in and invite Bob to take that bit of knowledge for everybody. I want to break up into smaller groups and give you guys all of a chance to interact in smaller group settings with the experts we have today. So Bob, I want to ask everybody to be respectful. There's going to be a lot of questions. We're not going to have enough time for everybody's questions, and invite our 4 soil folks to really help everybody try to just see the field and see the soil a bit through your eyes in the 5 to 10 minutes. But I am going to ask everybody to help us put our soil experts to work. We're going to rotate each group. You have about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we're going to change it up. So you guys are going to do your spiel 4 times. But that's going to give us a chance to interact, I think, in a lot better dynamic, okay? Bob, can I ask you, and Bob did ask me for a shovel. There you go, Bob.
You see what's sticking to this shovel? Let's talk about it.
All right, so go talk about the shovel with Bob. Bob, walk him down. Can you walk down about 10 yards past the truck, because there'll be a group at the truck. And we're going to rotate so everybody will get a chance with everybody. A group with Jamie at the truck around the equipment. Dave, can you just hold up the hook?
I got a couple things.
won't hold it again.
I got a couple things going on to me as I walk out to this field. First and foremost, I'm interested in the plant itself and the biomass it produces above ground, the biomass it produces below ground. One of the best ways to get biomass out of this above and below ground is to do the soil work, get your soil test, determine your needs, put the things there that you need, and use some compost on this just like it was your veg crop. We said it yesterday. If we treat the cover crop more like we treat our crop, you're going to get more biomass and more benefit. This is the way to get benefit from your crop. So don't underfeed it. And everything you do to it, the cover crop, before you plant it, is going to typically be there when you go to your crop. And it's going to be in better condition too. So it's a way to get the minerals and things that you put into the soil, the compost, actually active and ready for your crop. So in biomass, we go, wow, look at this great biomass. Well, here's the other one going on. If I walk in here right now quietly, I love to grow a cover crop, and then I go out and walk them. Walk into it slowly, and I can see it from out here, and we can both stop and look, and I see insects. I see some pretty big ones. I see them moving around. If we take 1 square acre, and we pretend that we could measure the number of insects, microarthropods and others, both the 9 animals that live on the surface, the guys that fly in, measure their weight in one season, in 1 year. By having cover crop and not bare land, you've attracted and born approximately, by every entomologist I've ever asked, maybe 2,000 pounds of insects.
What? That's free fertilizer.
35% protein. If you go down to the store right now and buy protein, like 12% protein, it's going to cost you about $400 a ton.
Yeah.
So you just put, by having your cover crop, you've attracted all this other life forms, and they're dying there, they're being born right there. So that's one thing that I always realize about my crops, the birds, the number of birds it attracts. Little bird goes in, he eats the bug, he recycles, and he craps in your field.
Right. Yep.
It's not going to happen if you don't have the cover crop. So this is part of this synergism going on. Let's look, okay, so we
Let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
Can you mix all the seeds up and just plant them, or you have to plant them in
the cover crop
whatever?
seeds?
Yeah, the cover crop seeds. Can
Okay,
you mix all 5, 6?
Yeah.
Definitely. I take them, I mix them together,
Beautiful.
and then I can either prepare my field like broadcast, and then maybe just take a little rake over it, or I can drill them in with a drill.
Oh, I mean drill them in with a drill.
Take a seed drill, a tool that's intended and designed to take the seed and it puts it in the ground for you, pulled behind a tractor. Or I can broadcast seed out. Both are appropriate. I like broadcasting because it hickey-jickeys the seed all over. I don't have that little line in between where the drill puts it in that I got weeds and things that come up. But wait a minute, weeds are okay. A little bit of weeds in there, we can go in. I can see a little bit of weeds. That's okay. That adds to the diversity that we're looking for, right?
So it's better off you just shy it.
You can just spread them out. Spread them out.
Do you even cover it? You just let it go?
Okay, that depends. Depends on the soil. Is my soil really low in organic matter? And when the slight rain comes and it becomes powdered like this. Okay, so let's look at this. This right here is essentially really poor. And this hasn't been fertilized or dealt with out here. You see how it's tending to crust? This is called crusting. So we got to go back to the series of soil. These are high clay content soils, and clay is a very fine material. This is a shrink swell clay. You see how it's shrinking right now, leaving cracks, and then when it gets wetter, it'll swell up. So the tendency here is for low calcium. Now, we haven't talked about soil nutrients, but the calcium is critical to you getting aggregation in this soil. Chemically, physically, calcium fluctuates clays. The term flocculation means the clay is going to loosen up. Clays are in layers, typically. And these layers become compact. And with calcium there's some physics that go on and it puffs them up. That's what you want. You want this lofting effect from calcium. This is a physical, mechanical process. Chemical. Doesn't have anything to do with the biology. So I've got calcium I can use. I've got compost I can use. I've got some minerals I can put in. All of this aggregating the soil, more so, and making my cover crop grow stronger. So I come out the cover crop, I look. This is my first indication of how the crop's going to grow. You see over there where it's growing higher?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a hill there. I got to walk in, this tricky business. I got to get in there and look, but typically let's pretend that it's bone flat. It's flat as the table. Flat as the top of my head. You look and you go, oh, there's a dip right there. Why isn't it growing? Well, I'll bet you anything, you walk out there, what you find is compacted soil in that area. It's probably a little lower, maybe stuff is settled in. Anytime you see poor growth, start thinking, compacted soil. Something's compacted. It's collecting water, not enough air, air-water reverse relationship, too much one, not enough the other. So the cover crop, to me, I get back up on the hill and I look, get an overhead and look, or I go out there and look, you go, oh, what's going on over there? This is where we're going to need to address some problems.
How would you rectify that?
Go out and determine what's going on, dig a hole, have a look at it, do it with some experience. Okay, well, so what was this business, this thing clinging to this shovel? This stuff wants to be clingy.
Yeah, that's too tight.
This is a typical characteristic. This is a symptom of high magnesium. I'll bet you, well, here we go, making projections. This has got some roots in it. This is looking pretty good. This is looking pretty good. This stuff here from over where we were, this ain't looking so good. All right, this is like, uh-oh. Oh, I had a wormhole. This kind of skinny, and there's only one, or maybe 1.5 or 2. And cut it. All right, this got some roots we're going on here. I can bring it apart. Doesn't smell sour. Smell any soil smells sourish or sour. Done. It's not enough air. Okay. And this is getting a little decent airflow into it, but I'm still from the clay content and just from dealing with soil for a long time. I'll bet it's high in mag. When it gets wet, it wants to get a little sticky on that shovel blade and stuff. You ever walk through a field and you start piling up on your shoes? You can't get it off. I'll bet you dinner in the best place in town, it's magnesium. It's too much mag. Okay, our lavas from the Hawaiian volcanoes all across the islands had plenty of mag in the parent material. And it's in the clay now. That's where the mag is. So where's the calcium and magnesium in soil? I always want to know where stuff's located. If you don't know where the carburetor is, you can't fix it.
Right.
My brothers, they know where the carburetor is, the battery and all that stuff. I know nothing of this. If I turn the key, it don't work. I'm dead. They go, what's the battery, Bob? It's a switch. Well, you got to know where it is before you can fix it.
Right.
So where's the calcium and the magnesium and potassium in soil? Where is it at? Is it just running around willy-nilly? Is it hiding in the pores or something? It's in the layers of the clay. It's interlayered into the clay and attached to the clay. So the clay is controlling your nutrient availability for the stuff. And as we get those balances more to, I'm not a perfectionist. There's some people that go, oh, it has to be 65 and 12 and we'll get ballpark. Head the right direction. If you're going the wrong direction, you're going to get there. Head ballpark the right direction. You'll get there. So, I don't know where we started. We talked about high clay content. I know these volcanoes had a lot of magnesium in them. It's still evolving out of the clay, whereas the calcium has been used up. It's exported by the crop more so, and not found in higher volume in the parent rock as the magnesium. So you're going to get a lot of mag, and you only need so much. So anything that's deficient in the soil causes an excess of something else. Go online, go to Google, and find antagonism of minerals. Antagonism of minerals in us. I met the doctor one day, 20 years ago. He said, what do you do? Oh, I soil samples, I do stuff. And he goes, oh, well, you know 68, 12, and 5, which is 68% calcium, 12% mag, 5% potassium. I went, it's in her blood? He went, what would you expect? You're a soil guy, Bob. You go, oh my God. Our blood is approximately the mineral ratio that we want in clay.
Wow.
Okay, we're
There
going
you
to wrap
go.
it up.
Coincidence, maybe.
Is that why we want to do our soil test, and that's why you strongly disagreed? Because
Yes.
we want to know if we're close to that ratio before we start, right?
Yes. Now look, what's the patient here? The patient is the soil. So I can take a sample, doc can take a blood test, but that's just information. I'm not saying to do everything that the agronomists from the lab tell you to do, but you do want to get with the lab, stick with the lab, study them, talk to them. If they won't talk to you, if they won't teach you what's going on, go find another one. Call me and I'll set you up with some people and you can learn from them. I've spent 25 years with some labs. We got to know where the minerals are. I can't manage organic matter management, compost, cover crops, mulches, nutrient management. I'm giving a lecture one day 20 years ago in Hawaii. The sincere young man comes up and goes, Mr. Schaefer, can I taste the soil and know where the calcium is?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Send it to a lab. Let's find out what's there. Now I can make some rational choices. Yeah?
Thank you, Bob.
How do we remediate high magnesium if it's there?
All right, so who's in my group?
We're
Is
all
this everybody?
around you. Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
sweet. So, sorry we're not able to get this out of the back of the truck. Some technical issues this morning. We don't have a forklift. But either way, so as I was telling the other group, I don't know if some people might have heard me say this yesterday, but I'm doing a little bit of research on the soil, physical, chemical, and biological properties, and the impact that cover crops and no-till have on the soil. And so what I've realized over the last 3 years was that continuous cover cropping was not changing my soil all that much, and I think the reason is because we had to till to get more seed in because we didn't have a no-till planter. Mowing was working out, but not that well. So finally realized like we've got to get equipment. So I got in touch with this guy on the mainland, this guy named Ted, who works for USDA National Soils Dynamics Research Laboratory. I don't know, it's a really long name, but either way, he's an agricultural engineer, and he makes equipment for a living. And Ted very awesomely donated this to us.
Wow.
And if you guys have never seen a roller clipper before, come over and kind of check it out. If you have seen one before, you've probably seen the type that have the big drum with that little chevron kind of shape going on it. So Ted's job is to compare his equipment with equipment that already exists and then improve upon that. And so that's essentially what he did with this. He gets a better cover crop kill with this piece of equipment, having a two-stage, because this front one here is rolling things down, this back one here is spring-loaded. So it's actually doing this on the cover crop in the ground. It's not impacting the soil. Yeah, and what it's doing to the plant is kind of what I did here, just to sort of fake it. But you're basically just breaking it. So you're stopping the water and nutrients from flowing through the plant. So this is how you effectively kill the cover crop. He did find with this one, depending on the cover crop you're growing, you might have to make 1 pass, you might have to make 3 passes. So he had an organic grower that was like, I'm not using herbicide, along with this, I just want to do it organically. So he made him a big one of these where he had rollers on both ends and 3 crimpers in the middle, and that works for him. 1 pass, he's good. So yeah, basically I was looking for no-till equipment, got in touch with Ted, he gave this to us, and then the next part was, okay, so I've roller crimped, but how do I plant into that, unless I'm transplanting? I had no idea. So we ended up finding a no-till drill, which is this piece right here. This guy, Mr. Morrison, made it, and basically this is something that you can use, same situation. Pretty much you hook this up to here, so you swing it around like that. So this is the front, yeah. And You can use them single like this on the back of a BCS, or you can line them up in series and put them on a toolbar, so you don't have to use a BCS and do this really small operation. 1 to 3 acres or something like that, this might work out, but if you're doing 5 to 10, it'd be really tedious to do it with this, I think. So you can scale this stuff up. You can make this bigger, and you can put these in series. And basically how this works is, in the front here is a row cleaner. So this is pulling all of the cover crop trash out of the way. So you've roller crimped it down, right? And then you're driving this through. This pulls the trash out of the way. This is a coulter, so this is just cutting.
This hooks onto the BCS, the Morrison seeder?
Yeah, this hooks onto the BCS. There's also there's actually this Chinese tractor that's a lot cheaper than a BCS, which I'm going to share information on that to people to try to get it out, because I think these are I don't even know.
12 grand.
Yeah, 12 grand. They're pretty expensive.
Really?
The Chinese
Not counting the
tractor-
implements.
Yeah. The Chinese tractor is a little under $2,000, but the motor or the engine, I guess, is not EPA
you could change
approved,
that.
so you got to get a local one. And
Change
once you
the
put the whole
engine.
thing together,
That's regular.
it's around like
Change the when you get it from China, change the
$2,500 or
engine.
something like that. Anyway, half the cost, if
The
they're
bearings.
quarter of the cost, I don't know.
Yeah,
So yeah, this is cutting into the soil. This is basically just making that sort of cut through whatever residue might still be there. Right here, this is digging the depth where you want your seed to go. So this is actually going down below the ground.
This here.
Yeah, and you can adjust it up or down, so depending on how deep you want the seed. Right here in the back, that's where the seed's coming out. This is the hopper.
There's a funnel thing.
So yeah, so in the hopper, you got fertilizer on one side and seed on the other, or you could feasibly probably do 2 different seeds if you wanted to. I don't know. I guess you could do it for cover crops and mix at least 2 species or a couple species together. And then you adjust the seeding based on these little things that come with it that have different size. I think you can adjust the pulley, and I think there's something in here that accepts different size seeds, so you can change your rate per acre. And then the way you get weight on this is you actually ride on the back. So you're standing on each side.
Oh, your feet go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're literally just
you're watching
standing
the
on
whole
your-
stuff going on.
This hooks to the BCS, so
You gotta feed the
those
seeds.
handles are sticking out towards you, so you're driving it and riding it. And same thing with the roller crimper. There's a little bar that hangs off the back, so you're literally just standing on it and just going through the field. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then this is closing the row right here. So this is basically just pressing up it so the seed goes into the soil.
So, do you have suggestions for how to do this if you don't have the equipment?
I tried for several years.
Really?
And this is what I ended up with. This thing's about $1,000. I think that's gonna be about 2. So it's fairly inexpensive if you don't have equipment. What you could do, or what I was doing, is mowing my cover crop down, which works all right. But some cover crop seed will, or some of the plants will grow back. It just depends on the variety, the season, what's going on.
We've been
moisture
growing sun hemp, and the fibers are so tough that it just we have to weed whack it down.
Yeah.
Because we can't use the mower because we have
So it's super sensitive to day length. So if you're planting it in the winter, you're going to get a much less woody plant. It's going to be a lot smaller. I'm standing up here, but pretend that's the ground. In the winter, you can get it around this tall, and it's going to be soft. And you can always terminate it a little early. Depends on if you're using it for ground cover, if you're fixing nitrogen. If you're trying to fix nitrogen, wait for it to flower. Otherwise, kind of wasting your money if you take it down too early. But yeah, it's a huge difference. In the summertime, I've seen this stuff get this tall. It just gets massive. So I try not to plant it in the summer. I don't like that ton of biomass. But now that we have a roller crimper, we'll probably grow it in the summer because you want biomass to cover
when
the
you
soil
roller
surface.
crimp, it smashes it down, and you're breaking it, and it doesn't grow back.
No, because you're pretty much taking it and you're putting so much force on it that it's snapping it at the soil surface. It doesn't work on everything. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I just got this about a month ago, so I want to test it out on other things, but I have a feeling it's probably not going to work on oats. I think oats are going to be difficult to terminate. Maybe it might work, but I'm skeptical. But yeah, things like sun hemp, things that have a stem that's kind of easy to crack.
Because even when we weed whack the sun hemp, if we leave it in the field, it'll grow up again.
Come back, yeah. Which is why mowing is alright, but I was trying to just mow because I was like, I want to do no-till, but it was not working for me. I still had to till because everything, for the most part, a lot of things were coming back. Some things were. Lava will regrow, oats will regrow at least one time. Sun hemp usually will regrow. It depends on how high you cut it. If you cut it really low, it might not.
Yeah, one of the No, you don't want to cut it though. You don't want to cut it.
You don't want to
Super low.
Bend
Get
it.
really low, like if you don't have
Bend it
rocks
over.
and stuff like that.
So what's the
Usually
difference
that would
between
probably
bending
work.
and cutting?
Cutting, it's going to regrow from where you cut it. Bending it, it's just
I mean,
like,
if you get good termination that way,
it's like
it hasn't worked.
cutting is like
But
you're
the thing is, like,
reproducing. Bending is just like an old person getting knocked down.
I've had pretty good results only because
Can I
we
get
have so
back
much
up as
grass and
easy?
so much water. The grass grows so thick when I mow it, it just makes this giant mat of chopped up grass, which can kind of hurt some things, but it definitely keeps the weeds down for a little while.
Yeah, you're like basically mulching, right?
But I think that it's
Is it because it's still attached and you've
Yeah, so-
broken the cycle?
When you knock it over, then the plant has all this other dead stuff on it, and it's like, oh, all this died, and it sucks all the energy to take care of this. You cut it off, it's just like all the vigor is still in here, and it can shoot new sprouts.
Thank you. I appreciate
No, you're.
But yeah, I don't totally.
What I'm doing here is I'm just going to answer questions. Rather than me explain something you may or may not be interested in, I'd rather just answer questions. So you guys fire away the questions you have. And
Go ahead, the
We got questions. These two got the same question.
Yeah,
How
go
do
ahead.
you transition if you just have a space of raw land that's just been left for
grass.
grassland or
Yep.
whatever?
Yep.
How do you transition? Do you have to till? Do you have
Well-
to, what's the best way to get in to get the cover
Yep.
crops to transition
Yep.
out of that?
And here's your choice. You got tillage, you got herbicide, or you kill it with some type of cover. What I've done, and it takes a little bit longer, is we'll go in the fall, we'll seed a fall biennial, cereal rye, hairy vetch. Okay? We seed that in the fall, it goes dormant over winter, the next spring it comes. Now you can use, you can grow things here year round, so you can use sorghum, Sudan, or work anything. When there's a window of opportunity that you can grow that, you grow that. I like to use grazing, and we'll graze that down after it starts forming a seed head. Then it's high carbon, and it'll actually smother the grass. But immediately, the next day, I'm in there seeding sorghum Sudan base mix. Dominant in sorghum Sudan. We let that grow up. We do the same thing. We turn livestock in there, graze it down. We're creating a thick duff layer, just like laying down cardboard or a weed mat. It's going to take several years. Am I going to terminate all the perennial grasses? No. But I can terminate enough of them where I can get a cash crop going.
So when you say you just seeded, you just broadcast
No,
the seed?
we drill everything.
You drill.
Yeah, I've got a
Okay.
20-foot drill because, I'm talking larger scale acres,
right,
and
right.
we're in a very dry environment. I can't, for me to just broadcast and expect it to rain,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. So.
Gabe, when you're ready, when the seed heads start forming and you move your cattle or sheep, how long do you wait till about half the biomass is gone, or?
Well, that's totally dependent on what I want to do. Like I said earlier, how we can proliferate root biomass by grazing, thus increasing organic matter. If I want to graze this again, livestock are going to select for energy, so they're going to come and take the tips of the leaf first because that's the highest energy. I would just let them take one bite and move them quickly. When we're trying to do that, we may move 6 or 7 times a day to get them across there. If I'm only going to graze it once, then we're going to leave them on a given area. We're still going to move every day, but we'll plot out. And I've done this enough. I can walk in here, and if I walked in here a bit, I could tell you approximately how many tons of biomass that is. I know the class of livestock I have. I know how much they eat per day, and I can figure it backwards, and I can tell you the exact area I need to fence off each day to give them their correct ration. So that's how I do it. The beauty of livestock is you convert this to dollars faster. And, it's very, very common for us to make more money grazing covers than the cash crop. Now obviously we don't have high paying fruit like that.
If this was my block, we just planted those 2 rows of mangoes, for instance, and I was lined it up nicely. I'd come and mow this, leave it for about a week to dry out, rake it up, and then pitchfork it to about 4 inches deep along those full lengths of the rows.
Right.
Where am I losing? Yeah, am I losing anywhere in any? I know I'm shifting nutrient from here to that other block.
Yeah.
But is it affecting?
Oh, it's negatively affecting
It's
this.
negatively.
It's just like taking hay. Like I had a question at the conference yesterday. A gentleman asked me, Gabe, I want to grow covers and put them up for haylage and sell it to the dairies.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're putting a Band-Aid on this foot and shooting this one because you're going to lose soil health on this block over time.
Yeah,
you will. So can that be done? Sure. But what I tell people, Peter, is just do it once, and then for the next few years, don't do it on this spot.
We'll
Now, you know, my brain's been going ever since. You know,
you're a winner, right?
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is, there's no doubt I'm going to put up some trellises. I know that, and I already got the field and things figured out. But we're going to go with covers first to prepare that soil, and then we're going with perennial covers between those trellises and that. Because I just have to see living things, and I'll guarantee it'll increase bricks and it'll increase nutrients in the fruit.
So to beat weeds in early stages, would you harvest from another block of yours and mulch, or you wouldn't need to mulch, you reckon?
What I'm thinking of doing, and I'm still debating this after your presentation, is do I need the mounds? Because if I don't need the mounds, I'll seed the perennials first and then put the trees in.
Yeah.
So I'll have perennials right up around the tree.
And just leave it there like that.
Yeah, just leave it there. See, and we don't get the rainfall, so.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Are
Yes?
you're not worried when you send the livestock out that it's going to compact the soil?
Yeah. Compaction is a function of time. If you leave them on there too long, beef animal, you're putting on about 27 pounds of pressure per square inch. That's way less than any implement or anything. And a heavy guy like me puts a lot of pressure on it.
Big guy.
The other thing is they're grazing a living plant, so that acts as a cushion.
Yeah.
You know, you will. And I had a soil microbiologist come to my place for 3 years doing compaction studies. What she found is the compaction lasts about 48 hours. Unless we're in a real wet time of year and it gets mucked up, then it lasts till the next rainfall again. So I don't worry about that at all.
Because you still have the living roots,
it
just fluffs back up.
And we've grazed over 1 million pounds live weight per acre. Now that's way more tighter than we are here right now.
Yeah.
I mean, those cattle can hardly move in that 1 million pounds per acre. You don't see any ill effects. It's very, very short term. And she did biology studies. It was fascinating. Right after the animals go through, bacteria numbers shoot through the roof, right? Because all the nitrogen, they get a flush. But then about 48 hours later, here comes all the protozoa and nematodes just eating them up, and boom, then your fungi starts to explode.
How many head of cattle is that? 1 million pounds.
Well, you're going to do it with 2 head of cattle. You can really do it with 1 if you can get it to stand on its 2 feet, But yeah, most of the groups I'm working with are from anywhere from 100 to 400. I'll have in a group. But that's just because of our scale.
On 1 acre or much bigger paddocks?
Oh, on that, smaller than an acre.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's a mob grazing concept.
Yeah. Well, I like to call it adaptive multi-paddock grazing, because we're not doing the same thing on the same acre every year. It's changing in flux according to what I'm trying to do.
And you have a fence? You have
just single poly wire. Yeah, we go out daily and string a poly wire. That's simple. That's our best part of the day.
What's the best advice you can give us after what you've seen so far here for us moving forward?
Right here, diverse mixes. Because look at what's happening here. The sun hemp is attracting pollinators. The buckwheat cycling phosphorus. Sun hemp and lab are legumes. The fibrous root system of the sorghum sudan is building soil aggregates faster than any of the other things. One of the things, like I said earlier, that concerns me is the talk of sun hemp over here.
Yeah.
You will decrease infiltration rates over time with too much legumes. It's gonna cause more damage to your soil than it will good. And so you've got to get to diverse mixes. And these diverse mixes, because of how much biology it stimulates, will directly correlate to an increase in the movement of nutrients throughout your soil. And if that happens, what do you get? Nutrient dense, better tasting crops. And if you have that, it's money in the pocket. You can set your own price.
Probably higher yields too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. didn't know this, and you planted all sun hemp, and now you're
Yep.
like, okay, what do I do now? Do I go back home and
No, you
put it all-
use it, and just next year you learn and
next
go
year
on.
do it different?
I've had to learn everything the hard way, usually twice.
Oh yeah. Basically, we've got our diverse polyculture.
Yep.
We crimp it down.
Yep.
Now we need, gangs of 20 to drill our seed back into the field. Like, that's the big missing piece here.
Yeah, the
is
big
that
equipment.
and the drills that we
But
need.
you know what? I had a video, and if I would have had more time, I could have showed it. I got a friend who used his little car to roll his cover crop down.
Right.
He just went out there
I
with his
like
little
that
car
guy
and drove
already.
back and forth.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he did. I got another guy who just took a board, put 2 springs on it, and just stepped it down. And walked it down.
Crop circles.
There's so many things you can do to
drag a roller
make that.
behind the truck.
Call up the local rugby team.
Yeah.
The crimper's not the problem.
Yep.
I think the drilling is where the big
Yeah,
missing
but
equipment piece
it's available on small scale. It's just a matter of getting them here. Getting them to the island. There's companies on the mainland that make those in a smaller scale, the right size, 5-footers or so. And you can get a no-till drill, a 5-footer for a few $1,000s. They're out there.
What we in Australia, the cane industry's got bigger and bigger with bigger machinery. A lot of the old stuff that's too small for them now is just sitting in sheds. Don't really give it away. It'd be the same in your game too.
Out my way, most people are using.
All right. Thanks for making the full rotation, guys. I'm going to ask you just while we talk if you could fill out our sign-in sheet. It will allow us to keep doing work with cover crops. So thank you. And Jen, take it away.
Great. Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. So my sample's a little bit pathetic now. I keep messing with it a little bit. But yesterday we talked about all these awesome hot spots in biological life and where the zone of influence is happening. And it starts. It doesn't start anywhere. It's all connected. But we can start at the top with the litter layer, and it's protecting the soil from erosion. It's moderating temperature. It's allowing, minimizing evaporation to make every drop count that hits the ground, and then that's just facilitating and feeding this nice, this one isn't so much, but this nice plant here, and then you can actually still see, even though I've thrown it on the ground and broken it apart, this aggregation that's happening right around the roots, like what Gabe was talking about earlier. The fungi and the bacteria are there, and they're releasing all these sticky substances, and their hyphae and the roots themselves are enmeshing like a hairnet. Right, and they're holding on to that, and they're building organic matter. They're not only building organic matter, but they're creating a whole unique environment for this plant to be as healthy as it can be. And so with a diverse suite of microbes and other organisms that are eating those microbes, it's going to help this plant ward off different stresses, drought, too much rain. Excuse me? Erosion, absolutely, yeah. And also any predation or pathogens that might be out there trying to attack it. They're going to come and swarm the roots. They're going to send signals above ground. And in this area, there must be, tons and tons of different insects, beneficials that are here because it is such a diverse area right here. And the plant actually releases these volatile chemicals, these smoke signals in the air, SOS, if they are being attacked. But they won't, the organisms that can help this plant ward off that pathogen or that stress won't be there if we don't provide that diversity. It has to exist. Cover crops are also amazing. A lot of the nutrients that we apply year after year with our cash crops are leaching down below the root surface, the root zone, and there's just a whole mine of nutrients that is below that area. These roots, when we grow cover crops, are going to reach down below that area. They're going to suck up those nutrients, bring it back up to the plant, keep it in the roots, build it in the vegetation, and then we're not harvesting that. We're growing for the soil, right? One for us, one for the soil. And then that's going to break down, and it's going to recycle, and all those nutrients, it's going to stimulate organic matter. formation. It's going to stimulate a whole suite of different organisms, and the more diverse, the more chances you're going to have the good guys there to fight off the bad guys, the bad nematodes or the bad fungi that might be resting in your soil. So it's kind of like natural biological population control if you create the right environment for it, right?
Probiotics.
Exactly. So I kind of pause there for a second and see what kind of questions you have. I'm sure you've just learned so much from the other presenters. Yes, sir.
I'm curious if you guys have been studying cover crops as biofumigants and if that affects the composition of the culture in the soil as well.
Well, do you want to just mention the sun hemp thing?
Well, I know that people at UH are using, are studying mustard as an nematicidal biofumigant, and also that the sun hemp here does excrete a compound that is nematicidal as well. So it kills particularly root knot nematodes, which is helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's research that is relevant on that on the mainland or not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Bob talked about replant disease at the end of our thing yesterday. And that's when you build up a population of the bad guys. And there's a lot of research that with mustard actually that has a much longer suppression of the different organisms. In this case, it was a nematode that was attacking the apple trees, and so they tested it with fumigation, and yeah, it knocks it down. But guess what? That next year, the nematode that was causing all the problems, their populations exploded in the area that was fumigated. But the one that had received the mustard seed meal treatment, those populations were kept low, and then their yield over the 5-year period were actually significantly higher with this organic amendment. Whereas, as soon as the fumigants are becoming less allowed, everybody's like, we're going to die and everything's going to, break down. We're not going to be able to farm. But, with organic amendments, there's a lot of great research that can address some of those concerns. So, we just have to kind of identify which chemical that the plant releases is the right one, and then try to incorporate that in our mix and see how, we can get that benefit present.
Do you know if there's been any research done with chrysanthemum?
I don't. Do you tell me more about what it's supposed to be?
Do you want to share?
I use chrysanthemum to repel some leaf hoppers and
above. Okay, yeah, I thought you were going nematodes.
No, not below ground. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't remember which group I talked about now, but yeah. So there's all this communication above ground, and they're releasing these chemicals. We can't smell them, but insects can, and if they're nearby, they'll come in and help ward off that.
They love to multi-crop with flowers.
Yeah. Nice. Looks
good.
How important do you think it is to identify the biological species that are interacting with these cover crops?
As a test that somebody should do on a regular basis, or just in general?
Well, just understanding its IMO.
Sorry, I'm a jerk. 2 minutes, everybody, then we're going to wrap it up.
Or they're doing DNA studies to identify who's in there. How important do you think that is?
I think in the long term it's extremely important. Today, right now, for a farmer trying to understand their biology, I think it's something that's a very emerging area. But I can tell you that the technology out there today, they're understanding this functionality, and they're linking specific microbiomes with different plants. And once they understand what that chemical communication between those two, they'll be able to kind of design these more ideal systems that can create, the nematicide properties, the nutrient cycling, the microbiome that's going to ward off some other disease, even drought. You can create different microbiomes that's going to help that plant deal with drought conditions as well. And so once they can identify it, then they can kind of build that better system and you kind of create these unique environments to address all the different resource concerns. So I think it's pretty important. Yeah.
I think that's a good question. Couldn't we, though, assume that because one of the criteria of sustainable farming is the number of earthworms per square meter, that if you have a really high number of earthworms, you're by default you're going to have lots of microbes in there. If you're doing a polyculture and your no-till?
So
It's a very general statement. Would you agree with that or not?
Well, I have a, earthworms are a kind of an interesting species that where they're non-native, they can actually cause some problems.
We have 11 species here.
You have 11, yeah. So encouraging
All of
those
them are
native,
alien.
the native populations, absolutely. They're kind of a
We
key.
have no native populations.
Oh, okay.
They're all invasive. They've all
Yeah,
been
see, so
introduced.
that could be, I don't know, but I don't know if maybe the earthworm then perhaps isn't like your keystone species. Maybe there's another, beetle